Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn, and I'm filling in for our chair and vice chair who are unable to be here tonight. Thank you for coming. This is the Township of Georgian Bluffs Committee of Adjustment meeting of May 16th, 2023 at 5 p.m. I will now call this Committee of Adjustment meeting to order. And I will begin with our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabeg, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. And further, give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. Okay, so item number 3 is an appointment of Secretary Treasurer and Deputy Secretary Treasurer. And the recommendation is that Ryan Lightfoot be appointed as the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment, and that Michael Benner be appointed as the Deputy Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment, and that said appointments take immediate effect. Can I have a mover for that motion? And I can't see.
Kathy, Ron Glenn.
I'm sorry?
Ron Glenn will move it.
Thank you, Ron. And a seconder? That's going to have to be. Can he hear? Is Elgin on with us? Okay, thank you,
Yes.
Elgin. You're seconding that? Thank you. And
Yes.
Is there any discussion about this recommendation? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries. Okay, moving on to the approval of the agenda and possible additions to the agenda. So I will recommend that the agenda be approved as presented, and I'm asking for a mover and a seconder.
I'll move that.
Thank you. Same two folks. And is there any discussion? All in favor? All in favor? Elgin, can you still hear us?
I
Thank
still hear you.
Perfect. I think there might be a little delay, so we'll just I'll just try to take a beat and wait for your hand to go up there. Thank you. Okay. If there's any declaration of pecuniary interest now, please speak up or at any point in time during the meeting. So moving on to 6.1, this is to approve the minutes of the March 21st, 2023 Committee of Adjustment. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder for those minutes to be approved.
I'll move them.
Thank you. I see a pattern here. Thank you very much. And is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All in favor, just show me a hand, folks. There we go. I think that carries. Elgin, you're okay with that?
No.
No?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thank you. Apologies for the glitches in the technical flow here. Moving on to new business under 7.1, we have 3 new applications, I believe. And 7.1.1 is Get my papers in the correct order. Okay. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for a minor variance for Kathy and Wayne Dietrich under Section 45 of the Planning Act regarding property located at 317698 Highway 6 and 10. I would ask Mr. Secretary Treasurer to please go ahead with your review.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm not the Secretary Treasurer, but the Deputy Secretary Treasurer, and given that our Secretary Treasurer is very new to this position, I am going to handle this meeting for him. So with respect to file A0223, there has been no request for deferral or withdrawal of the application. Notice of this variance was given in accordance with Ontario Regulation 197-96 made under the Planning Act, and that was given on March 13th, 2023 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property, which is subject to the application, and to all required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject lands and the township's website. If those in attendance or those online, if you wish to be notified of this decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of decision of the committee in respect to this proposed proposed variance may submit an appeal. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. and Mrs. Dietrich, if you are in attendance and willing, would you like to please present your application? This is your opportunity.
My name's John Tennant, and I'm the planning consultant for the Dietrichs. I wasn't sure how this would progress this evening in terms of the planning report that was submitted by your staff to the committee. Is there going to be a run through that at some point tonight, or?
I'm sorry, a run through
the planning report from your own staff?
Well, I would turn that over to our planner to comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Given the transition in the planning staff at the municipality, the planning report with actually all three of these applications was prepared by our planning consultants, JL Richards, and they are in attendance at this afternoon's meeting and can, after Mr. Tennant, provide some more details on the application, or they can actually kind of run through the salient points in their staff report.
Okay. I was actually going to do something a little different. I was going to say, I just kind of agree. I've read the planning report and I generally concur with it. And I wasn't going to go through a lot of I've got a planning report that's 35 pages long, and I was planning to just touch on the highlights, Madam Chair. Now, is that fine with you?
Yeah, that's absolutely.
You've had it to be able to read it. Thank you. Okay. What we're applying for here is a minor variance to allow for a swimming pool to be located on the Dietrich's property, and their property is an existing non-conforming use. It's a residential use, but it's designated for the lands are designated for commercial use under the official plan, the town's official plan, not the county. The county is a little different. The county designates it as a settlement area, and then the town's plan can be more detailed and identifies it as a commercial area. And that, as we know, area in around Rockford has a number of uses established that fit that bill. But But it also has some that aren't, and it just so happens that the Dietrichs have a residential property. The property to the south of them is also residential, and so they don't fit that mold. The prospect under the official plan is that maybe someday that'll change. Maybe the land use will change, but at the present time, there's no intention to do that. So what I'd like to point out from my planning report, like I said, I'll just skim some of the highlights. On page 4, gives actually, let me back up a page. The site plan, page 3, shows the proposed pool, the location of it in the rear yard behind the Dietrich's home. They have a shed there now. They have a rather large front yard setback, but a narrower rear yard because of that setback. But the area shown in blue is the proposed pool. In the next page, the locational aerial view shows that the lands around the Dietrich's property and the property to the south, which is also very similar residential lot, is surrounded by mostly rural area. The Mennonite furniture property is further to the south, and interestingly enough, it's outside of the commercial designation in the settlement. So not sure why, but it is. The next thing I'd like to highlight is the figure 3, which is a plot plan showing what I call a mirror effect. And what it is where the subject lands show where the proposed pool is, and the property to the south, the neighbor's property to the south, already has an existing pool. And with this proposed pool, more or less these properties are mirrors or twins of each other. So basically, because it's an existing legal non-conforming use, the Planning Act and the official plan, both the county and town official plan, allow for variances to allow things that don't otherwise comply with the official plan and the zoning bylaw. And that's what's being applied for here. The variance is to permit a pool with a 4.5 meter yard setback. I'm going to skip through all the nitty gritties of that because gets kind of detailed. There's also, just as part of this application, because the official plan identifies the property within a karst topography area, the Dietrichs commissioned a karst assessment in accordance with the official plan, and that assessment came back to show that there was no karst issue on the property. Now, swimming pools are a normal accessory use to a residential use, and they're generally permitted under the zoning bylaw. The thing that's interesting with this situation is because it's in this future development potential zone, no other uses at all are permitted. It's required to have a rezoning to permit a proposed development. So because of that, the normal ability to put a swimming pool with their residence is not allowed under the zoning bylaw. So that's the reason we're here tonight. Couple of the tests that are normally required to be addressed with a minor variance of this nature under the Planning Act is whether or not it's considered a minor situation, whether or not it's considered appropriate for the property, and whether it's compatible with the surrounding area. Now, this proposed pool is, as I said, normally associated residential, so there's nothing incompatible about it. There's no surrounding lands impact, and it does mirror the property to the south. So my recommendation to the committee is that because of these things, because it is appropriate, because it is reasonable, that the committee approve this application to allow for a swimming pool in the rear yard with 4.5 meter setbacks. Now, any questions, Madam Chair? I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Tennant. Do any of the committee members have any questions at this point? I'm seeing none from our members. Thank you for that information. We appreciate you coming to present. And I wonder at this time if there's any comment that GSS or the engineering consultant would like to make.
Through you, Madam Chair. My name is Wes Petco. I'm a senior planner with JL Richards. Given that there appears to be mutual concurrence between the applicant's planning rationale and our staff report that was prepared in regard to the application, and as per the conclusions and recommendations in our report, it's our opinion that the application represents appropriate development and desirable use of land and will not result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood. And as such, and as cited in our staff report, we recommend that the application be approved. Thank you.
And thank you for those comments. I will also note that no one has registered with the clerk to comment on the application. And if the committee members have no questions at this time, I will go ahead and read the recommendation and then call for the vote. It has been demonstrated that application A0123 for Kathy and Wayne Dietrich meets the two tests set out in subsection 45(2)(a)(i) of the Planning Act RSO 1990 C P13 as it represents appropriate development and desirable use of the land and will not result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood. As such, it is recommended that application A0123 be approved. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? And thank you, Member Glenn, and seconded. Thank you, Member McMillan. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you. I will now call for an adjournment of this hearing, and I need a mover and a seconder for this adjournment. Thank you, Member Glenn, seconded by, I'm going to take a wild guess and say Member McMillan. Excellent. Thank you. This public hearing is now adjourned. Okay, so thanks, folks. Okay, I was just allowing for some discussion with our planner here. I think we're good to go on to the second consent report. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for a severance for Terry Holdaway under Section 53 of the Planning Act regarding property located at 319144 Gray Road 1. And I'm turning to our planner to, I imagine, to go ahead with that review.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There has been no request for deferral or withdrawal of the application. Notice of this severance in accordance with Ontario Regulation 197-96 made under the Planning Act was given on March 13th, 2023 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property, which is subject to the application, and to all of the required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject lands and the township's website. If anyone in attendance, wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of decision of the Committee in respect to this proposed consent may submit an appeal.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Holdaway, if present, would you like to please present your application? Now is your opportunity.
I'm fairly new to this process, so I'm not sure just 100% what you guys are looking for.
Well, join the club. I'm also very new to chairing this meeting, so we're in the same boat. Welcome, and whatever information you would like to share with us, we would appreciate.
Okay, I have applied for an archaeological study by the Fisher Group at Hamilton. Everything's in the works. It should be completed hopefully by the end of June. That shouldn't affect the severance. That's only for a building permit, if I am correct or not.
Are you asking me to answer that question?
Through
I'm
you,
sorry,
Madam Chair,
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
I can provide a brief summary of the application, should you wish.
If you could just let us know who's speaking, that would
This
be
is-
great. Thank you.
Yes, this is Rebecca Elphick. I prepared the staff report in front of committee today. I can speak to the application if you wish.
Mr. Holdaway, is that okay with you?
Yeah.
I had given you the floor, but if you would like, we can go that direction and come back to you. If
Yes,
okay.
yes, please do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Application B0323 is a severance application that proposes to create a 0.8 hectare non-farm residential lot from the 56.5 hectare parcel. The proposed lot meets the lot area and frontage requirements of the zoning bylaw. It has been demonstrated that the application is consistent with the PPS, conforms with the county official plan, and complies with the Township of Georgian Bluff zoning bylaw. We recommend that the application be approved subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Thank you very much. I procedurally, Rayburn, can we go back to Mr. Holdaway at this point?
I believe that is fine.
All right. Take it away, Mr. Holdaway.
Thank you very much. There was just a quick question for the archaeologically people. They want to know who to contact at the county level in the township now that things have changed.
I will direct that question to our principal planner, Mr. Benner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Mr. Holdaway. They can reach out to myself at the township, and then I can direct them. Well, actually, they could also reach out to Scott Taylor, who is the Director of Planning for the County of Gray. But if they just reach out to me, then I can direct them to Mr. Taylor's direction.
Okay, excellent. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you very much. No one has registered with the clerk to comment on this application. Does our committee have any questions or comments to make at this time? And seeing none, I will now call for a vote on the motion. On the decision, the recommendation is that it has been demonstrated that application B0323 is consistent with the PPS, conforms with the county official plan, and complies with the Township of Georgian Bluff zoning bylaw. It is recommended that application B0323 be approved, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that a reference plan be completed and a copy filed with the municipal clerk, or an exemption from the reference plan be received from the Land Registry Office. Number two, that pursuant to Section 5342 of the Planning Act, the certificate of consent be affixed to the deed within 2 years of the giving of the notice of decision. Note, Section 5343 of the Planning Act requires that the transaction approved by this consent must be carried out within 2 years of the issuance of the certificate, i.e. the stamping of the deed. Number three, that the applicant pays the applicable consent certification fee at the time of certification of the deeds. Number four, that the applicant pays 5% cash in lieu of parkland in accordance with the Planning Act. Number five, that the applicant provides evidence of the site's suitability to provide an adequate potable water supply and sanitary sewage treatment and disposal system in the form of an evaluation conducted in accordance with the MECP guidelines or the Ontario Building Code. Number six, that the applicant submit a widening deed and registered plan to the County of Grey to support a 5.182 meter road widening along Gordon Owen Drive to the satisfaction of the County of Grey Transportation Services. And number seven, that the applicant undertake an archaeological assessment of the lands to be severed, completed to the satisfaction of the township and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. I would ask for a mover and a seconder for this recommendation.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Member Glenn.
Yeah, a question with regards to condition number 6. And they're asking for a 5-meter road widening along Gordon Owen Drive by the county. But I thought that Gordon Owen Drive was a township road, not a county road.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this over to our planner as well. Mr. Benner.
Through you, Madam Chair, I can respond to this question. This was provided in a letter by Grey County Planning Services. They had asked that this road widening be a condition of consent approval. So we had it included in the conditions listed here. That correspondence is included with the application package as well for your reference.
So I'm sorry if I missed it earlier. So is this a county road or is this a municipal road?
I would have to verify that on my end. I don't have an answer just right off the top of my head, but I could look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the county's comments. And the county's comments have said that they want County Transportation Service have no objection that a 5.18 meter road widening is required. Are they asking, and it doesn't say off of Gordon Owen Drive, are they asking for it to be off Grey Road 1?
I see two hands in there. I'll go with our principal planner, Mr. Benner, first.
I think you are correct.
Okay.
I think it's for the County Road 1, and it got mixed up and put in Gordon Owen, which is the township road.
Okay, Mr. Benner, is that your interpretation as well? Because if that's the case, we're going to have to make a change to the recommendation before we vote on it, I would think. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree with Mr. Holdaway. I believe it should be County Road 1, not our township road. And as such, we would have to amend condition 6 to note County Road 1.
So then I have a follow-up question to that then for our planning staff.
Okay, go ahead, Member Glenn.
That is that the lot that's proposed to be severed is on Gordon Owen Drive. And the lot that's to be retained is the original farm lot.
Correct.
And the county's asking us to impose a condition on the retained piece.
Yes.
And my understanding is that under the Planning Act, we cannot impose conditions on the retained piece. We can impose a condition on the severance, but not on the retained piece. Can I ask the planners to clarify that?
Absolutely. Over to you, Mr. Benner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just racking my brain trying to think how that would work. It is unusual for a county staff or transportation staff to be asking for conditions on on the original piece or retained piece. I think it's Member Glenn is correct that the condition would typically apply to the newly created lot.
So, I'm going to need some help here because I'm not exactly sure what we can do about this at this point, unless we are prepared upon the advice of our staff to eliminate that part of the recommendation number 6. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just looking at the county's comments again. And I look at, they have the paragraph that we're referring to in the county comments dated March 28, 2023 state, County Transportation Services have reviewed the subject application and have a comment stating County Transportation Services has no objection and that a 5.182 meter road widening is required. The widening deed and register plan are required to be submitted to Grey County. And then the county planning staff note that provided county transportation services requirements are met, county planning staff have no concerns with the subject application. I'm going to stick my neck out here a little bit, and I would recommend that without any further information on how this would be implemented from the county's transportation department, I would suggest that perhaps that condition can be eliminated.
Okay, so that would be condition number 6. Our planner is suggesting that one can come out. I'm going to turn that back to the committee members, just to ask how you feel about that recommendation. Member Glenn?
Through you, Madam Chair, I would support the removal of condition 6. I'm not sure how physically that we can attach a condition to the retained piece within the confines of the Planning Act. The one thing I would say instead of removing it in its entirety, maybe it's if it is required, and would it be required under the Planning Act? I know that the county would like to get the road widening, but I'm not sure that they're going about the right way to get it at the expense of the landowner having to give up 5 meters of his frontage across the entire of Grey Road 1.
I think that's a reasonable comment. Thank you. And Member McMillan, did you have anything more to add?
No, I agree with the member. It makes sense that that's the way it should be.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation or the suggestion is that we keep it as is, number 6, except that we're changing Gordon Owen Drive, if I'm understanding this correctly. We're changing it to County Road 1, and we're stating that that's to the satisfaction of the County of Grey Transportation Services if required under, or do we want to be specific about what the legislative piece is there, Mr. Benner? What's your recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would suggest that, I think that's good to remove obviously Gordon Owen Drive and replace with County Road 1. And instead of saying if required, perhaps we could say if permitted under the Planning Act, under the provisions of the Planning Act.
To you, Madam Chair, I would support that modification to condition 6.
Okay, thank you. And also, Member McMillan, you would support that?
Yes, I would support that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That was a curveball for my first chairing of this meeting. I'm trying not to be flustered here, but it's all good. Rayburn, can I ask, do you want me to reread the entirety of this long statement, or shall I just start with number 6 and complete it?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't believe you actually have a mover and seconder on the original motion. So you will require a mover and seconder for the motion as presented on the agenda. Then you will require a mover and seconder for the amendment.
So we'll be turning down, if I'm understanding this correctly, the first motion will be to not approve that.
So
That
your
recommendation.
initial motion will or your initial mover and seconder will be to the motion as presented. Then you'll require another mover and seconder to amend condition 6 to read that the applicant submit a widening deed and registered plan to the County of Grey to support a 5.182 meter road widening along Grey Road 1 to the satisfaction of the County of Grey Transportation Services, if permitted under the provisions of the Planning Act.
Okay, I think I've got that. Stop me if I'm doing something incorrectly
I will.
here. Okay, bear with me, members. So now I did finish reading that. I'm sorry. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for the original motion.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Member Glenn, seconded by Member McMillan. Thank you. And all in favor?
Oh, don't we have to read the other motion before?
Mover and seconder on the amendment.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes. So now we need a mover and a seconder for the amended motion.
I'll move the motion.
Thank you. And seconded by?
Seconded.
Thank you. Thank you, Member McMillan. And all in favor? And that carries.
But I'm used to.
Okay. Is everything good? I can move on to adjourn this hearing.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm now calling for an adjournment of this hearing, and I need a mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, members Glenn and McMillan, and all in favor. And that carries. This public hearing is now adjourned. And thank you, sir, for hanging in there with us.
No, thank you very much for everybody's time.
I
Excellent.
appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, on to our next report. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for a variance for the Princess Margaret Foundation under Section 45 of the Planning Act regarding property located at 504571 Grey Road 1. And I'll ask the Deputy Secretary Treasurer to please go ahead with his review.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There has been no request for deferral or withdrawal of this application. Notice of this variance in accordance with the Ontario Regulation 19796 made under the Planning Act was given on March 13th, 2023 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property which is subject to the application and to all the required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject plans and the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of decision of the Committee in respect to the proposed variance may submit an appeal.
Thank you. And Mr. Thompson, if available, would you please present your application?
Yes. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? My name's Ken Thompson. I'm here on behalf of the Princess Margaret Cancer Foundation. We purchased this lot and have worked immensely with engineers to make the house fit on this lot. Due to the slope of the lot, the 6-meter setbacks from the toe of the slope at the top and bottom, we were able to meet that, but the house did have to go on the bottom side of this lot because there was no room on the top on the roadside. In doing that, we are right on we're 2 meters from the shore road allowance and the setback's 10 meters. So we're requesting some relief to the 10-meter setback to be able to fit this house in here, which still puts us way behind the neighboring house.
Thank you. Did you want to make any further comments at this time?
Wasn't really sure how this whole meeting went and what we were going to have to do. I didn't really have any information on it. That's really all we're looking to do is just that. Right now, I do have an archaeology assessment planned. They're booked out till June or July, but I was able to move forward with this on the condition that we do get the archaeology assessment passed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do the committee members have any questions or comments? Member Glenn, go ahead, please.
I just have one question, and it's a confirmation question for Mr. Thompson. On the site plan with the application, it says that it fronts onto Balmy Beach Road, but isn't this up on Gray Road 1 in north portion of Wool Capel?
Yes, you're absolutely correct.
Okay. All right. Just want to confirm that the sketch on the site of the application and the sketch that we got as a committee member are in the same spot.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
I wonder if I might ask a couple of questions. Is that appropriate for the chair to jump in here? We have had a couple of comments from neighboring properties, property owners. And I wonder if we could have our staff and perhaps Mr. Thompson as well comment on any concerns that may exist around the location of the new septic system as it pertains to proximity to neighboring shore wells. So because of the location of the house and the space left over for the septic system, I think then there may be some concern that the placement of the septic system may be too close for comfort to the neighboring shore wells. And I think folks are looking for some reassurance that that will be taken into account. So I would ask for comments from our planner and also Mr. Thompson, if you're able to comment on that.
I'll jump in. It's Wes Petco with Senior Planner with Jael Richards. Through you, Madam Chair. As part of the application review process, we received, the township received comment from the property owner to the north, as you indicated, expressing concerns about matters relating to tree removals, the placement of the retaining wall and septic system, and those concerns were cited relative to potential drainage, erosion, groundwater conditions, and associated impacts. As part of our review of the application and in consult with the applicant's engineers, we were able to confirm that as part of our recommended approval of the variance application, that the conditions that we outline in our staff report should serve to address the concerns expressed by the resident as well as review agencies who provided comment.
Okay, so so that will be addressed in the conditions that are listed. Then we'll take care of those concerns. Do you think?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is our opinion. Yes.
And in terms of tree removal, is there any, I know that was one of the comments that was made, are there any provisions to limit or restrict in terms of erosion and other factors, or is that not something that is able to be have conditions put upon it?
Through you, Madam Chair, one of the first condition of approval, it regards the owner providing an updated site plan to the satisfaction of Grey County and the township, confirming that any tree clearing required for future development be restricted to only what is necessary to accommodate construction of the dwelling and the services, and that the said tree clearing shall avoid the woodland breeding bird season from May 1 to August 15 in any given year. So as per my earlier comments, the conditions of approval with this application address that concern specifically.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from committee members at this time? Okay, seeing none, I will now call for a vote on the motion on the decision. The recommendation reads, application A0223 for the Princess Margaret Foundation, requesting relief from zoning bylaw 2020-020 to reduce the minimum required setback to a shoreline road allowance from 10 meters to 2 meters, to facilitate construction of a single detached dwelling on private services, satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance as required by the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13. It is recommended that the application A223 be approved, subject to the conditions outlined herein. Number 1, that the owner shall provide an updated site plan to the satisfaction of the County of Grey and the Township, confirming that any tree clearing required for future development shall be restricted to only what is necessary to accommodate construction of the single detached dwelling and services, and that the said tree clearing shall avoid the woodland breeding bird season from May 1st to August 15th in any given year. Number 2, that prior to any site alteration or development on the subject land, the owner shall provide a letter of opinion from a qualified geotechnical engineer to support proposed excavations on the subject land and mitigate potential adverse impacts therefrom, and also provide an updated engineered lot grading and drainage plan confirming appropriate sediment and erosion controls and drainage works will be in place to both enable development and mitigate potential adverse impacts therefrom, to the satisfaction of the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority and the township. Number 3, that prior to any development or site alteration on the subject land, the owner shall undertake an archaeological assessment and implement any mitigation measures identified to the satisfaction of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation and the township. Number 4, that the owner shall confirm that the subject land can safely provide on-site sewage and on-site water servicing to the satisfaction of the township. Number 5, that prior to any site alteration or development on the subject land, the owner shall obtain all required permits and approvals from the County of Grey, Grey Sauble Conservation Authority, Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the township, and any other agency having jurisdiction. And number 6, that the owner shall enter into a development agreement with the township within 6 months of approval of the minor variation application to ensure compliance with the conditions of approval as cited above. And I'm looking for a mover and a seconder on this recommendation.
So moved.
Thank you, Member McMillan, and seconded by Member Glenn. Is there any further discussion? And I will call the vote. All in favor? And that carries. I will now call for an adjournment of this hearing, and I need a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Member Glenn and Member McMillan seconding, and I will call the vote. All those in favor? And thank you, that carries. This public hearing is now adjourned. Okay, on to 7.1.4. This is PL 2023.24, a joint report for B05 23 and B06 23 for ROP and Hunt. The recommendation is as follows, that applications B05 23 and B06 23 for Daniel Ropp and Allison Hunt to sever 2 parcels and retain 1 parcel of the property located at concession 18, lot 22 to 23, former municipality of Keppel, be deferred to a future hearing, affording the applicants the opportunity to provide additional information and revise their applications accordingly. So I would ask for a mover for that recommendation. Thank you, Member Glenn, and seconded by Elgin. And is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And thank you, that carries. And so we have no unfinished business that I'm aware of. And finally, the date of our next regular meeting, Committee of Adjustment, regularly scheduled June 20th, 2023 at 5 p.m. And if there's no further business, I will now call for adjournment of this meeting. And I need a mover. Thank you, Elgin, and a seconder. Thank you, Member Glenn. And all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. We are now adjourned. And thanks for hanging in there with me, folks. I promise to do better next time.
Great job, Catherine.
Good job.
Have a nice evening.
You too. Take care.